data science and cybersecurity are growing through this right now. I mean, we've seen that, kind of across the board in every one of our, everywhere we've invested. There's a little more hesitancy in software engineering, but we are very bullish. We know, I mean, here's the reality. The reality is that you have some companies who've slowed down hiring, but they can't do that forever. They're going to run out of mid-level devs. They have no junior devs. And they're going to have to start building software faster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Business of Learning podcast. My guest here today is Giovanni Difeterici, who is the VP of Product at Flatiron School. Giovanni, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
100%. And tell everyone a little bit more about Flatiron School, what you guys are all about, who you help, and any context that you'd like to share about the company.
Yeah, Flatiron is a bootcamp for learning technical subjects. It's primarily a career changer program for just general consumers. But we've also developed programs for higher ed institutions, and we also help companies develop their workforces through upskilling and reskilling programs. So we train people in technical subjects like software engineering, data science, and cybersecurity.
Awesome. And do you find that a lot of these people, as they are coming through or finding out more about you guys, there is a concern or a worry just about the whole AI thing that's out there? I'm like, hey, is this something that is viable for me to do to either possibly start to change into this career, but to keep upskilling in this area when there's so much quote unquote uncertainty for a lot of these people?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's more of those questions these days than there used to be. But I think it's caused by a mix of kind of the marketing around the development of AI. There's a lot of big AI or tech companies that are heavily invested in building a specific narrative around it. And so that has created some open-ended questions, but we're very confident that data science and cybersecurity are growing through this right now. I mean, we've seen that, kind of across the board in every one of our, everywhere we've invested. There's a little more hesitancy in software engineering, but we are very bullish. We know, I mean, here's the reality. The reality is that you have some companies who've slowed down hiring, but they can't do that forever. They're going to run out of mid-level devs. They have no junior devs, and they're going to have to start building software faster. Because I think I was a developer for over 10 years building products.
Yeah.
And I just know from experience that these companies are going to have to start building at pace to keep up with the advancements in technology, and they're going to need new talent. And we will be there to provide it when they realize that. So
yeah, 100%. And obviously we had a brief discussion before this entire thing, before the recording came on, and you mentioned that oftentimes the market has seasonalities, and there has to be an adaptation on both the consumer side, but also the provision side, which is the case for you guys. And there was we had a brief conversation about a lot of people, wanting to have these career changes and such, but oftentimes now these companies, as you said, there's such a huge shift coming where there is so much more of a demand. So have you found that there has also been a need to shift the perspective and the way that you guys are operating internally too?
Yeah, traditionally, bootcamp programs are built around sort of a monolith of learning. So most of the industry was built around the idea that this was roughly 10, 12 years ago. Flatiron was one of the very early bootcamps in the space, sort of an innovator in the space. But I would say 10, 12, 13 years ago, there was such a need for junior talent in the space, primarily because universities were not able to crank out people with the skill set fast enough. Their model just wasn't able to keep up. It's not that it's bad, but in a couple ways, a computer science background is not always the best fit for like a software engineer or a front-end developer, back-end developer. And so a lot of those folks who are coming out of traditional degrees needed to be reskilled anyway. So companies were either investing in doing that themselves or finding strategies for just sort of skimming the cream off the crop, like just off the top of the best talent from the pool. But even with those strategies, the pool itself was too small. So there was a massive opportunity to sort of find alternative pathways for developing those skills. And the tech industry has always been open to alternative, backgrounds anyway. It didn't, most tech companies do not demand a computer science degree. If you can demonstrate capability and build product and show value, that's all they really care about. So back in the day, whenever it was building this type of business, the opportunities were just manifest. It was the gold rush in some ways, that
Mm-hmm.
everybody needed talent and everybody wanted to get into tech. And
Hmm.
it was just a particular type of environment. Over the last 10 years or so, that has cooled a little bit. I mean, it was cooling a little bit years and years ago.
Hmm.
And that not only were boot camps in place, but universities were adapting and providing other types of programs. There were other types of certificate programs. The internet just developed and became more accessible. So there's a lot
Yeah.
more just self learning.
Hmm.
And so I would say that the biggest shift over time is really a conceptual shift in understanding the customer. And
Hmm.
so the way that I describe it to most people is that if you take the general consumer who's looking for a career change, there are different categories of customer,
Hmm.
and they're all going to be going after a different type of solution to the job of sort of moving themselves into a new career.
Yeah.
So there's a category of people who are just self learners. They're not going to go with any of these solutions. They start when they're 14 or 13 building software and games, and by the time they're in college they're already building software. They're the ones that get recruited and
Yeah.
are often very forward thinking innovators.
Hmm.
We can't serve them because they're going to do it themselves. Neither does, often universities aren't serving them. They're already doing things themselves.
Hmm.
Then there's a group of people on the other end of the spectrum who have means and they want the college environment. They want that experience. They want to delay, their entry into the workforce. Those are also probably not a bootcamp customer because they're out looking for something else. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
then there are people kind of in the middle where they have started to learn a little bit. They can't quite get where they want to go. Maybe they've been working a job and kind of hit a dead end in
Hmm.
marketing or, retail or something like that. And so what they are looking for is someone to help. They know they have a motivation. They've pursued knowledge in a specific technical field, but they need help getting over that hump.
Hmm.
Um, and that's really where Flatiron has provided value, or programs like Flatiron provide value, is we
Hmm.
help those people who need a stepping stone into a new career. That's kind of the way that we view it. Um,
Hmm.
and what has really shifted from AI is uncertainty around the difference between those people who can be self-starters and those people who need that stepping stone.
Hmm.
Because the promise of these tools is that they'll help you. You don't need to go somewhere else. But the reality is that that's almost certainly not true. You know.
Hmm. Interesting. And it sounds like obviously there's just two focuses that you guys have in the business, which is the individuals themselves, but also the enterprise level that you guys are operating in. Is there a specific set of skills that a lot of these companies and these individuals are looking to improve on? And I guess what I'm saying here is not really this 0 to 1 level, but more so the one and beyond. But is there a specific set of skills that they really are in desperate need for in their companies, or is it just would you say it's a more general sense of, hey, we just need you or our team to become so much better at this thing, more efficient, faster, more productive to be able to get the output on the back end? Or is it just like a one, two, or three things that they're like, hey, if you get better at these things, then we get what we need?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, it's all across everything you said is a potential reason for
Mm,
working with somebody like Flatiron. Because all companies are in different places. Some of them are
mm,
really big, and they have their goals could differ wildly. So some
mm,
organizations are looking to develop a particular type of workforce. They may have equity
mm,
goals, and so they want to create on ramps for specific groups of people. And so they want to invest in that. So it's an investment on their part to develop a
mm,
workforce. Others are kind of in the middle. They have a mature workforce, but they're looking to reskill people into other areas.
mm,
There was, if you have a lot of software engineers and you're looking to pivot towards AI solutions, you likely need to upskill all those folks into a common understanding
yeah.
of the AI tools you want to adopt. You
Mm,
can ask your 150 developers to go learn themselves, but they all may all learn something different.
mm,
And so it's a way of setting a baseline.
mm,
So that may be it's a kind of a common goal, is upskilling, reskilling your teams so that they
mm,
can work together on a new direction. Uh, so those are two common areas where we see a need. Another is
mm,
just looking for an additional way of developing a pipeline for new talent,
mm,
because we've seen that before. We train several, say we train 100 people, um, and
mm.
then they may guarantee 10 hires but interviews for everyone, something like that.
Interesting. Very interesting. Thank you for the clarification there. That gives me some good context on the entire I guess the entire thought process or the actual operations behind it. And are a lot of these companies looking to really upskill large departments, a larger team of individuals, or is it usually like a couple few here and there? I know that it obviously varies from a lot of the probably varies from a lot of the relationships, but is there like a pattern that you seem to see that gets repeated?
Yeah, we work with a couple large organizations for significant numbers in the dozens or
Mm,
hundreds, and then we work with several in the smaller scale. So we work with a couple, and the relationships vary. We're very flexible with how we work with
of
people.
course, yeah.
So in some cases, we provide all the training, onboarding, marketing, admissions. We're just a one-stop shop for kind of like we need to bring in people and train them to a specific skill set.
Yeah.
And in other cases, we provide more of like a platform and licensed material, and they use that
Hmm.
internally to train their own team. So they pick and choose the topics from our
Mm,
catalog of learning.
that makes
Um,
sense.
and so we try to support people more or less in whatever goal they want. So we're kind of
Hmm.
a solutions oriented company where
Hmm.
we have a model by which we deliver learning very quickly, and then we have a platform that we use to deliver all of our content.
Hmm.
And we have a lot of expertise in these technical subjects with in-house subject matter
Hmm.
expertise and instructional designers.
Hmm.
And so we really come to the table just saying, look, we're here to help your team kind of develop in the way that you need it to, help us understand
Hmm.
your problem
Yeah.
and the kind of
Always
program you want to develop, and
adaptability.
then we'll tell you how we can solve it.
Awesome. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. And is there a specific way that a lot of these relationships, these opportunities come to you guys? Are they usually word of mouth, referrals, things like that, or is there any other form of these where these companies, these opportunities are kind of falling into your plate?
We don't do a lot of outbound for corporate training. Pretty much all of it is word of mouth or inbound for
Hmm.
us.
Interesting.
We do work a lot with higher ed institutions, and so we have sort of a more specific solution that we offer to them for
Hmm.
ongoing training. So we look for partners there that we think is a good fit for both parties. We want to make
Hmm.
sure that we're providing value across the board to their students, to our partners, and to ourselves.
Hmm.
So we definitely are more intentional about that.
Hmm.
And then we have sort of our direct to consumer model, which is very traditional.
For
Um,
sure, yeah. Just the I guess the usual senses of marketing that you that everybody
yeah.
knows. And when it comes to a lot of the conversations that you're having, actually not the conversation you're having. Sorry, with the goals that you have for the company. Obviously, we haven't had a conversation about goals and what you guys want to be, what you want to reach, what you want to impact. I think we had a brief touch point where hey, maybe getting to where we used to be in the past. But as you're looking at those things and you have I'm assuming there's a timeline to achieve those things as well in the business. As you're looking at those, when you face those things and the executions and the actions that you have to take to achieve those results, what are some of the things that stand in the way that are obstacles within achieving those goals?
The biggest obstacles right now are the sort of macro environment that we're operating in.
Hmm.
I think that's true for most organizations right now.
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., I don't know how many of your listeners are international, but in the U.S., like the political climate really drives a lot of sort of business development. And since we provide technical training for folks
Mm-hmm.
either in upskilling, onboarding, or career changers, we're operating with organizations that are pretty sensitive to those factors. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's probably the biggest thing right now is just that
Mm-hmm.
there is a little bit of folks kind of holding their breath is like
Mm-hmm.
should we act now. We A lot of the folks we talk to, they know they need to develop teams, but the question is, should we do it now or should we do it in 6 months?
And does that when you're faced with those things, does that make you lean away more of towards those opportunities and more so, hey, let's go to the I guess the bread and butter of the more I don't want to say the more solid avenue, but maybe the more I guess past improvement. It's true, it's gonna be a little bit more stable when it comes to the macro side of things.
Well, I think the foundation of our business is the business that we understand the best, which is our consumer
Hmm.
business and working with higher ed. That is just
Hmm.
a business model that is predictable. We know how it works. It serves as our foundation.
Mm.
But I would say the ethos of myself and Peter Barth, who is the CEO, is that we are looking to innovate. We are
Mm-hmm.
just we're in a tech space. There's no world in which we aren't changing what we're offering every couple of years to some extent. So in the
Mm-hmm.
past, like I said, there were monolithic products where like the simple solution, we could get anybody into them.
Mm-hmm.
All you would sell would be long 15 to 30-week courses at a high price point. That is evolving. I would say that there is an appetite for smaller, more bite-sized,
Mm-hmm.
specific trainings into competencies rather than some like larger goal of career changing. That's still a goal. I mean, I still think there's plenty of
Of
people looking
course.
for that,
Uh-huh.
but there is now more of a market for some of these other things. And so
Hmm.
we're aware of that. We spent the last year rebuilding a lot of our curriculum and the platform that we
Hmm.
work with our content to modularize a bunch of it so that we can deliver more sort of solutions oriented training as needed.
Interesting. And when you're looking at those, on always maintaining that innovation and trying to iterate and improve everything that you guys are doing, is there a usual framework that you have, and then changing the intricacies within there, or within that, or are you kind of innovating the actual innovations itself every single time, to try to create new things and just become a become a company that is able to bring new things to the plate all the time?
We want to be a company that brings new things to the plate all the time, but there
Mm-hmm.
is an understanding of what works and doesn't work. I wouldn't necessarily call it a framework. I
Mm.
mean, we do operate with a lot of frameworks from a instructional design perspective, product perspective, things like that. But if you just talk about sort of our approach to what our products are, we know what works from a training perspective. We've done it for a
Yeah.
long time. We have, and so our goal is to provide sort of a flexible structure. So
Mm.
if you're looking for training, but you want to do in-house training with a sort of a tried and tested body of learning materials, we can provide that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're very consultative. We tell folks, like, if you don't have great trainers on in-house, your results will not be as good as if you work with trainers who've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. Full transparency for them.
Yeah, and we have versions of our program which are much longer tail and lower touch. So lower touch with mentors versus in person.
Hmm.
But the outcomes of those programs differ, or like the results for people can differ based upon how much time you have with an instructor, how much can you
Mm.
dedicate to the learning, how much can you invest in your workforce on a weekly basis versus a yearly basis. Those things do impact the outcomes for those folks. And
Hmm.
to me, it's just a value proposition question. Which are you looking for? We're
Oh,
happy
that
to
makes
kind of
sense.
work with you on that.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's the exact answer that I was looking for. So that was awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
And I have a couple questions, final questions here for you, Giovanni. One is a question that has become a pretty much a frame of the podcast. I've been asking it to every single person that's come on, and you're going to be no different. So we'll start with that one. Let's say you had a magic wand, and you had this amazing magic wand that can just solve one thing, one problem, one challenge, one obstacle, whatever it is within the business that would make hitting your growth goals much, much easier. Oftentimes there's many that we would like to solve, but for this one, you just get one thing. What's the one thing you want to solve?
It's an interesting question. Um, I think that it depends on where. That's a good question. I think it depends
I
on
ask
where in our business you're talking about. So if
it.
it might slightly differ between a couple of things, but I'll just,
Sure.
for the higher ed side of our business, I would
Mm-hmm.
say that our ability to get out and connect with these people faster would be
Mm-hmm.
like the biggest thing, because we have had great success sort of in
Mm-hmm.
that arena. But we're not a big company. And so, the ability to kind of get face to face with people faster and
Yeah, have those conversations.
have those conversations to express the like what we think is an extremely high value proposition
Mm-hmm.
um, in developing relationships between higher ed partners is that would be very helpful in that arena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. And then the final question that I have here for you is a question that's actually not from me. It's a question from our last guest to you, and they had no idea who you were.
Okay.
So, are you ready for this question?
Sure.
Which I think is actually, oftentimes they are not very fitting, but I think this one's going to be very fitting. So, here it is. What will help you adapt to changes that are happening everywhere so that you can keep succeeding in the future?
Hmm. Um, that's a good one.
No, yeah, very, very fitting for everything that we've been talking about.
I think that I think there are a lot of straightforward answers which have to do with very business oriented things. But my personal view is that everything in a business needs to be driven by a particular philosophy and how to approach
Hmm.
it. And so I would say that the thing that keeps you able to innovate and progress and adapt to the future is a philosophy that drives that kind of thinking. It's very easy for a company that's been around for a long time with the same group of people to kind of calcify,
Hmm.
to become rigid in the way that it operates, to be dependent on the systems that it's put in place. And if you don't have the appetite to dismantle some of those things in favor of building something that makes more sense for the future, then you're going to have a lot of problems. You're going to develop sort of an architecture of problems, basically,
Hmm.
that will be difficult to deal with because you haven't cultivated a culture that is in service of this philosophy of innovation.
I find that so interesting. You mentioned the word appetite to change, and I think that's so true. So many companies are like, it's just how we've always done it, and they're like,
Right.
they just stick with that as opposed to being able to innovate, change, and make things better and improve not only themselves but also the results that they bring to people. So, completely agree with you there. Do you want to add anything there or no?
Yeah, I think that it's very easy to land there. You know, I've worked with
Uh-huh.
when I years ago when I was a software developer, I ran an agency. I worked with a lot of different companies that built a lot
Hmm.
of different products, and you can always tell. You can always tell not only if the organization itself has kind of hit a point where it's stuck,
Yeah,
or if the
plateaued. Yeah.
specific people that you're talking to are stuck. It's
Hmm.
very evident just after talking to them a little bit. So I've always tried to just be transparent about my thinking there when I talk to folks and say, I see this
Hmm.
as you know, like if you want to achieve the goal you're laying out for me, here are areas where I think we should probably work. Um,
Hmm.
but it's, yeah, I think you need to have the right leadership mindset to drive those
Hmm.
changes.
Amazing, Giovanni. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your insights. Where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about you, or maybe a little bit more about Flatiron School?
Yeah, I'm not super online, so I would go to flatironschool.com. You know, we're on all the social media, so we put out videos on YouTube. We're active on social media, so you can find us there. It's all Flatiron School.
Amazing, Giovanni. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me.